Welcome to the LMD Podiatry Podcast. Trust us to get back on your feet. Here's your host, Dr. Lauren DeBaccaroff.
Hey everybody, happy Monday. This is the LMD Podiatry Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Lauren DeBaccaroff. And today we have a special guest, Rachel Hayon, good friend of mine who does lots of stuff. Rachel, tell us what you do.
Thanks for having me on, Lauren. So my name is Rachel. The name of my company is Second Brain Health. I am a registered nurse, and I do everything from health coaching to balance board training to utilizing a therapy called MNRI.
So I met Rachel many years ago, and we reunited randomly, and it was a great reunion, and I learned a lot about what she does. And I wanted to bring Rachel on today because I feel like what she does is very important to do in conjunction with what I do. So, as you know, Rachel, I'm a podiatrist, and I see a lot of foot problems. And there's just some people that don't heal from anything. If they have an injury or chronic pain or something like that, there's something going on in their level of health that's not letting their body repair itself. Either it's the DNA repair or their age. And I find that a lot of it has to do with their actual well-being. And I know that you're a lifestyle coach as well. And we always chit chat about what you do. You've actually helped me in the past. You still are. And how do you think that, how do you incorporate what you do when someone comes to you with I feel like everybody comes to you when there's just something that they can't figure out, and you find out on a deeper level where their health comes in. How do you feel like it incorporates to people with different pains and aches around their body?
Well, it's a good question, Lauren. And yes, everybody ends up coming when they have a problem, right?
Right.
Not usually preventatively. So the first thing that I do is look to see what somebody is eating. How are they sleeping? Are they taking supplements? If so, what are they? But a lot of what we can do for our health is in our own hands in terms of proper food choices, which is still very tricky today given what's on our shelves. So a lot of times people don't know what the proper thing is to eat, and that in itself is an education process. Starting with that will lead to better results with any type of therapy. Or if somebody comes to you with an injury and they're inflamed, you can do as much as you can do. Obviously, you're trying your best, but they have to do their part in terms of proper nutrition, proper supplementation. And a big one that people don't talk about very often is detoxification of the body.
Right, which is, I think I mentioned it briefly on some of my other podcasts that, today we live in, especially in America, there's just our food is not nutrient rich. So you kind of have to, because of the soil. And it's a big topic that people aren't really aware of. And I feel like that's a really big part of DNA repair. I think you and I have a mutual patient. We actually have talked about this person recently. And there's nothing, I did his surgery and every type of therapy. I've sent him to every therapist and every adjunct I can think of. And every MRI came back that there's nothing wrong with his foot. And I was like, all right, it's all in his head. And you came in and you helped him a little bit. And it was you mentioned that it was just a response to the trauma he experienced from, having foot pain up until he finally met me and I physically fixed his issue. Right. So that's when I think the MNRI helped him a lot. And it's very interesting how people, there's a combination of how people process their pain, and there's also their physical health on how their body heals. And people have let's say you're 40 years old, but your biologic age is 50. And it's because of the food that we eat, and it's because of our level of health. Right?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, somebody could be, like you said, 40 years old, but physically seem or feel much older. And in the case of the client that you're referring to, poor guy has been in pain for such a long time. And he did say that you really did try to help him with everything. And he was always baffled that things kept on coming back clear. But he wasn't necessarily eating the best that he possibly could. And because I think of the trauma that he was in, it was hard for him to get, into that. So part of MRI therapy is helping to release the trauma that the body holds. Um, and we were talking also about how he could make better food choices and what supplements he could take to help reduce inflammation. And in his case, probably a lot of the clients that you see or patients that you see, if they've been on meds for a long time, if they've been on pharmaceuticals for a long time, in all likelihood, their body isn't clearing it properly. And that means that they need to do things in order to help clear. And there are some supplements that you and I have talked about. But there are other things that you can do on your own, whether it's, exercise is a great detox because you're sweating, going into a sauna, going into a hot bath, any of these things will help to remove the toxins that you have loaded in your body. And people always ask, my grandparents didn't have to do that, but they weren't dealing with the amount of toxin exposure that we are today.
Correct. I get that a lot on my own personal issues as well. It's hard for me to accept it, but it's the reality. And there's a lot we can do about it with the help of someone like you. It's very interesting. Like if I have a patient, let's say with a chronic plantar fasciitis, so the most common cause of them continually having the issue is because they're constantly straining their heel, right? But then there are certain points that I do admit to them, like, listen, you're obese, and it doesn't matter how much I immobilize you and how much fancy regenerative medicine I use on you, you have a constant strain on your foot from the weight. So it's very hard for them to admit it to themselves. And on the last podcast, me and Jeremy were talking about chronic pain, and it's just like your body can't recover from that if you're constantly straining the same area. And you can do physical therapy and get all the steroid injections and all the stem cell injections and all the laser, but if there's 400 pounds on that foot, it's not going to get better, and that's also part of the repair.
Right, and it's also that people don't realize that fat cells themselves are inflammatory. So in addition to the physical weight,
they're inflammatory, fat cells.
Fat cells release something called cytokines. Cytokines are inflammatory molecules. So just the fact that somebody is carrying excess fat on their body means that they're constantly in a state of inflammation. Incidentally, fat cells also house toxins. It's our body's way of keeping us safe. So the larger somebody is, in all likelihood, the more toxins they're carrying around and their body can't get rid of them.
I once heard something about vitamin D, that even though we technically have a lot of vitamin D in our diets and things like that, that we don't release it into our body because it gets stored in the fat cells. And once you lose the fat, it gets released into your bloodstream.
Correct. And you also have to look at what type of vitamins you're getting, meaning a lot of foods now are fortified with different vitamins. Those vitamins are synthetic. So because they are synthetic, the body oftentimes cannot actually process them. In fact, it can poison them. It's a problem, and people don't realize that and don't know any better. So a lot of the breads and cereals and pastas, they are fortified, which can make weight loss harder, which can make healing harder. It's better to eat foods that are fortified and then buy good quality supplements. And again, that's something where people think or feel, like you said, that the soil is not as nutrient dense as it used to be. That's one, but two, a lot of the toxins that we're exposed to, a lot of the things that are in our environment can actually leach vitamins and minerals from our system, and that makes it harder to heal as well.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Sure. Folic acid. Folic acid is a great one because folic acid is in everything. Pregnant women are told to take folic acid, but it's a synthetic form of a B vitamin, and oftentimes you can't convert that properly. So it actually blocks a receptor in your body for the right type of B cell or B vitamin, excuse me. And that can lead to not just difficulty with detoxing, it can lead to a deficiency in the vitamin you think you're getting.
Do you see a lot of patients with like chronic extremity pain? Like foot pain, leg pain?
Well, anybody you refer to me most likely has that. Some sort of
like I bet you people with like a bad diet, they have tired feet and things like that.
For sure. Because again, they're inflamed. So whether it's tired feet or tired legs, if you're not moving and not getting things out of your system, in all likelihood, you feel more pain, more exhaustion.
Right. Can you expand more on how MNRI works? Because I know you've done it to me, and I still don't understand how it works, but it does work. I will share a personal story. I clench really badly, and it's from this subconscious anxiety that I have. I'm always worried, and I clench a lot, and I've ground my teeth to nothing. And I've tried night guards are protecting my teeth, but I still can't stop the clench. And I tried TMJ therapy. I tried massage. I went to chiropractors, and like this muscle is really, really tight. And then with Rachel's help, I have been waking up with loose jaws. And if you can just expand on what the MNRI means, as in like I know it's activating the dormant reflexes, but can you just expand on how it's supposed to work, or what people can expect from an MNRI session, and how many sessions do people typically need, and things like that?
Right. Well, it's, I'm glad your jaw is feeling better.
Yes, it's great.
So MNRI was developed by Svetlana Maskatova. And MNRI is Maskatova Neurosensory Motor Integration, which is really long, which is why it's easier just to say MNRI. At first glance, and Lauren can vouch for this, it just looks like a massage. It doesn't look like anybody is doing anything to you. Protocols work from waking up your skin receptors, which is something that I've done, and that can calm down the central nervous system. One of the main components of, and that is what MNRI is about. It's calming down the central nervous system in different ways. Okay, in different ways. So when we talk about primary reflexes, we all are born with reflexes. And the one that I like referring to, because I think it's the easiest we can all relate to it, is if a baby grabs your finger, are they actually grabbing your finger? No, they're not. It's a reflex. They're supposed to grab your finger. And that movement of knowing how to protect themselves by grabbing on is a precursor to being able to protect themselves later on. Like there's another reflex that's called hand supporting, where if you are falling forward, what do? Or what should you do? You should put your hands out in front of you and hold yourself before you fall, right? But some people don't have that reflex. I know, because I have a kid who didn't have that reflex, and she would fall flat on her face.
So
how does that?
How does someone typically lose that reflex that they're supposed to have?
Typically traumas. Either something happened to them in life, or they didn't develop, in the proper way for whatever reason. We're not always going to know why, unless it's an obvious, like there was an accident or there was a birth trauma, or it could be as simple as somebody falling on their tush, and that could throw them out of the proper sequence. And these reflexes, these movements our body makes, relate to how our brain processes things and how it develops. So we develop from the brainstem up. So we start here and we come up here, and that's how we're supposed to. And the movements that we make can influence the way our brain functions. So MNRI can obviously, like Lauren said, it helps loosen up her jaw, right? But hopefully also help take away some of the tension and anxiety that she